Welcome to Fireside Fables and Folklore. Before we begin, go ahead and get cozy. Wrap yourself in something warm. Let your shoulders relax. Take a deep breath in and out. Let the soft crackle of the fire help you settle in. If these bedtime stories bring you comfort, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it truly brings you peace. And I'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments what you liked about tonight's story and what your favorite fables or folklore are. I always enjoy reading the stories that stay in people's hearts. Now, close your eyes, let the world fade for a while, and come with me to a place just beyond the clouds. Tonight, we're telling the legend of the white snake, a timeless story of love, spirit, and devotion. Before the temples, before the riverside inns, before even the tiled roofs of Hangzhou rose to meet the clouds, there was the mountain. And upon this mountain, for 1,000 quiet years, a white serpent slept. She did not dream of prey or danger. She dreamed of the moonlight, the way it spilled like milk across bamboo leaves, of the spring rain's rhythm against moss-covered rocks, of something that lived in the breath of mortals but had no name. Somewhere deep inside her, the serpent longed for more than instinct. She longed for awareness. And so she began to cultivate. She coiled beneath ancient pine trees and listened to the wind's stories. She drank dew laced with starlight and meditated with her eyes half-lidded, not on prey, but on peace. For centuries, the white serpent absorbed the energy of the world, absorbing kindness from passing monks, wisdom from the wind, and patience from the slow rhythm of mountain time. She learned the patterns of the heavens. She learned the laughter of village children carried up from the valley. She watched birds pair for life and wondered what it meant to love without fear. One day, after over 1,000 years of quiet cultivation, she opened her eyes, and they were human. But she was not alone. Within the cracks of a nearby stone pool lived another serpent, smaller, greener, wilder, a snake of mischief and laughter. Her scales glistened like jade in the sunlight, and her name was Xiao Qing. Unlike Bai Su Zhen, the white serpent, Xiao Qing had no great ambition. She loved stories and storms. She listened to gossip whispered by the birds, and once bit the nose of a monk who tried to shoo her off from his sandal. But she loved Bai Su Zhen. She followed her like a younger sister, though she was likely older in serpent years. Still, Bai Su Zhen was wiser, kinder, and when she decided to take human form and descend the mountain, Xiao Qing insisted on going too. "Don't leave me behind," she hissed softly, or I'll curl into a rain cloud and follow you anyway." And so the two departed the mountain in springtime, when the blossoms were just beginning to open and the rivers ran clear from melted snow. In the city below, Hangzhou, people bustled like ants around lantern stalls, boat docks, and open-air markets. Mortals were curious and loud, and they never seemed to sit still. The two spirits, now in the form of graceful women, walked through the town with cautious fascination. Bai Suzhen wore pale robes and carried herself like falling snow. Her presence was gentle, dignified. Her smile could calm a frightened child or hush a barking dog. Xiao Qing wore green and laughed often. She trailed her fingers across silk stalls and fruit baskets, marveling at the textures of the world. No one suspected their true forms. They looked like sisters, traveling perhaps, or seeking work. No one saw the way their eyes flicked too quickly, or how animals paused and turned as they passed. Bai Suzhen had one wish: to live among humans, to feel what they felt, to understand why their lives, though brief, seemed so rich. She did not expect love. A rainy meeting. It was a sudden spring rain that changed everything. Clouds rolled in over West Lake. Locals rushed to cover their stalls. Children squealed with delight as puddles formed. The sky dripped steadily like a pot of tea overturned. Bai Suzhen and Xiao Qing found themselves caught in it without shelter, just as a scholar passed by under an oil-paper umbrella. He was young, though not overly so, a quiet man with eyes like still water. He saw the two women and paused. "Miss," he said gently, offering his umbrella, "you'll catch cold." Bai Suzhen took the umbrella with a bow, her fingers brushing his. That single touch was enough. She saw flashes of his life, not in visions, but in feeling. She sensed his loneliness, his gentleness, his quiet dreams tucked away in books. He was unlike the other men she had observed from the mountain. He was still and warm and kind. His name was Xu Xian. And that is how their story began, not with thunder or magic, but with an umbrella in the rain.
In the days that followed, their paths crossed again, not by design, but by something quieter, a gentle pattern of fate. The rain fell softly, washing the streets in silver. Boats bobbed gently on West Lake, their lanterns flickering like grounded stars. The air smelled of plum blossoms and wet stone. Under the shared umbrella, Bai Suzhen walked beside Xu Xian in silence. He didn't speak much, but neither did she. And yet there was no awkwardness. The space between them felt natural, a quiet river flowing gently forward. As they reached the stone steps outside a small herbal shop, Xu Xian turned. "This is my home," he said. "I work here. Well, I run it now, after my uncle passed. It isn't much, but it's honest." Bai Su-jen smiled, brushing a strand of damp hair behind her ear. "Honesty is worth more than gold." She handed him the umbrella, but he hesitated. "Will you be in town long?" She nodded. "Then perhaps I might offer you tea sometime, as thanks." She accepted with a slight bow, and he watched her walk away, unsure why his heart beat the way it did. Inside the shop, Shu Xian stood by the door for some time, staring at the street where she had vanished into the rain. He didn't know her name, but something about her made him feel safe. She passed by his shop in the morning. He brought extra tea to the lakeside pavilion on the chance she might appear, and slowly, like spring itself, something bloomed between them. Shao King watched it all with curious eyes. She said one evening as they returned to their rented rooms, "You like him, more than just as a person." Bai Su-jen didn't deny it. She sat beside the paper window, staring out at the moon's reflection in a water basin. She whispered, "There's something in him, something clear. Do you think he would still like you if he knew what you were?" The question lingered in the air like incense smoke. She said, "I don't know, but I'm not ready to tell him." Shu Xian, for his part, couldn't stop thinking of her. Her voice calmed his thoughts. Her presence felt like rest. She understood silence. She listened. She asked nothing of him but sincerity. So, on a morning when the sky was blue and the apricot blossoms had opened, he asked her to walk with him by the lake. They sat on the edge of the water, their feet swinging just above the surface. The breeze carried the scent of sandalwood and lilies. "You don't know what your past holds," he said, "and I don't care." She turned toward him slowly. "I only know that when I see you, my soul feels whole." She didn't answer with words. Instead, she placed her hand in his, and he closed his fingers gently around it. They married on the first full moon of summer. It was a small ceremony, just a lantern-lit gathering by the water, with local families and kind strangers. Shao King stood beside Bai Su-jen in green silk, arms crossed, watching everything with mock impatience and quiet joy. There was laughter, there was music, and somewhere, deep in the heavens, the Jade Emperor watched and smiled.
Their days together were simple, but in their simplicity, a rare peace blossomed. Bai Su-jen and Shu Xian run the apothecaries side by side. She understood herbs as though she'd whispered with the plants themselves. He had the gentle hands of a healer and a heart attuned to suffering. Word of their remedies spread quickly, not only because they cured pain, but because they welcomed all who entered with warmth. Those who visited the shop felt something they could not name. Some said the air felt cleaner. Some said the teas brought dreams of moonlight and forests. Others simply returned over and over for no reason they could explain. To most, Bai Su-jen was simply a graceful woman with a stillness in her presence. But to those sensitive to the spiritual world, something shimmered just beneath her form, something ancient and powerful, veiled in kindness. Xiao Qing kept a careful watch. Though she often teased, she never let her guard down. She sensed the world's edge tugging faintly, the way a tide pulls at a boat not yet untied. And in the heart of the Jinshan temple, seated in meditation so deep it stilled the wind, there was a monk who felt the ripple. His name was Fa Hai. He was a man of discipline and ritual. His life was silence and scripture. But when Bai Su-jen crossed the threshold between the mountain and the mortal world, a thread called taut in her soul. One morning, during his meditation, he opened his eyes and saw only white, a flash of scales, a glint of old power, and he knew, a dragon walks among the people. He rose, gathered his robes, and began his descent into the world. Bai Su-jen felt it before she saw him. Not his face, not his body, but his presence, like cold wind against warm skin, like silence where there should be song. It was the Dragon Boat Festival, and the river was lined with lanterns. Boats with dragon heads danced across the water as drums beat from shore. Children shouted with joy, and dumplings steamed in baskets along the bridges. Bai Su-jen held Shu Xian's hand, smiling, when she felt a sudden stillness cut through the joy. At the edge of the crowd stood a monk in golden robes, a string of beads at his wrist, eyes sharp as ice. He did not blink. He did not smile. His gaze locked onto hers, not in curiosity, but in judgment. Fa Hai had found her. That evening, back at home, Bai Su-jen sat by the window long after Shu Xian had gone to bed. Xiao Qing stood behind her. "He's come," she said. "Yes." "What will you do?" Bai Su-jen closed her eyes. "I will live my life. I will not run. I have harmed no one." But Xiao Qing's jaw was tight. That man doesn't care what you've done, only what you are. Bai Su-jen didn't answer. Instead, she walked to her husband's sleeping form and sat beside him. She watched his breath rise and fall. She placed a hand gently over his heart. "I will protect this peace," she whispered, "whatever it takes." The following morning, the sunlight poured gently through the paper windows, casting soft golden squares on the wooden floor. Shu Shan stirred first, stretching with a quiet sigh before rising to prepare tea. Bai Su-jen sat already at the low table, combing her hair with long, graceful strokes.
To him she looked as serene as ever, but her mind was elsewhere, listening to the wind, to the distant shifts in energy, to the ripple of Farhai's presence still lingering in the town. Shu Shen handed her a cup, smiling warmly. "You didn't sleep much," she replied gently. "Of the festival?" She nodded, not quite answering. A knock came at the door. Xiao Qing appeared, unbothered as always, but her eyes flicked toward Bai Shu Zhen with a silent warning. At the door stood a messenger monk from Jinshan Temple. His head was shaved, his robes clean, but his message sharp. "Great Master Farhai invites you to tea." Bai Shu Zhen's hand tightened slightly around her cup. "Me?" "Yes," he replied, lowering his eyes. "Today, at noon, at the temple." She bowed. "Tell your master I will come." The temple was a grand and silent place, perched atop a hill that overlooked the town like a watchful guardian. The path was steep and lined with stone lanterns, each one worn smooth by rain and time. Bai Shu Zhen walked alone, her robe the color of early fog, her expression unreadable. Her steps were slow, steady, respectful, but within her rivers of memory surged. Farhai awaited her in a pavilion overlooking the mountainside. He did not bow nor smile. She did neither. "Lady Bai, you walk among mortals. Do you believe you belong here?" She met his gaze calmly. "I live a quiet life. I help those in need. I harm no one. You are not human," he said, his voice low but unwavering. "That is harm enough." "Why?" she asked. "Because I was not born from flesh? Because I carry centuries of memory in my bones? You are deceiving a man, polluting the mortal path with illusion. I am loving him, and he loves me." Fei Hai stood. "You may be gentle now, but your nature is beyond control. One day your serpent self will rise, and when that happens, he will suffer." Bai Shu Zhen stood as well, her voice soft but firm. "You see only the spirit, not the soul." Fei Hai turned his back. "Leave the mortal world, or I will reveal you." She bowed once, not in submission, but in grace. "I am not afraid of the truth, but I will not be judged by fear." And she left, her steps as quiet as her tears. That night, rain returned to Hangzhou. It fell in long silken sheets, coating the rooftops and emptying the streets. Shu Shen closed the shutters and lit the lamps, but something in the air unsettled him. Bai Shu Zhen sat by the fire, silent. He knelt beside her. "You've been far from me all day." She looked at him and touched his cheek. "I have something to tell you, but not tonight. Tonight, let's just be still." So they sat, shoulder to shoulder,
while the rain tapped its lullaby against the window panes. Xiao Qing stood by the doorway, watching them, guarded, frowning, because she knew what was coming. Fa Hai had not finished.
The morning was still, too still. Even the birds seemed hesitant to sing. In the marketplace, whispers began to float like ash in the wind. Rumors, quiet questions. A strange tension hung over the town like mist that refused to lift. And at the heart of it all, a monk in golden robes moved through the crowd without speaking. Eyes followed him. Children hid behind stalls. He was not cruel, but his silence carried weight heavier than 1,000 accusations. Inside the apothecary, Bai Zuzhen swept the floor slowly. Each stroke of the broom felt like a heartbeat. She knew. She could feel it in the way the shadows leaned, in the way time hesitated between moments. Shu Shen entered, smiling at first, but then he noticed her hands, trembling. "Suzhen?" he asked softly. "What is it?" She looked up at him, searching his face, holding his gaze. "I love you," she said. "I know. I need you to remember that, no matter what you hear, no matter what happens." He stepped closer, confused, concerned. "You're frightening me." She opened her mouth, but the door slammed open before she could speak. Fa Hai stood there, flanked by temple acolytes, his voice ringing out like thunder in the quiet shop. "Step away from her!" He froze. What is the meaning of this? "She is not what she seems," Fa Hai declared. "She is a spirit, a serpent demon in human form." The words struck like a sudden storm. Customers fled the shop. Glass jars rattled. Even the herbs in their baskets seemed to recoil. Shu Shen turned toward Bai Zuzhen slowly. She stood still. Her eyes were full of sorrow, not fear. "Suzhen," he whispered. She stepped forward. "It's true." A breath. A pause in the universe. "I was born a serpent, but I have lived for centuries among trees and silence. I have never harmed a soul. I came here not to deceive, but to understand, to live, and then to love." Shu Shen staggered back, the truth too heavy to carry. He ran, out the door, into the street, through the market. Bai Zuzhen did not follow. She knelt where she stood, like a flower in winter, and let the silence hold her. Xiao Qing rushed in behind her, eyes blazing. "He had no right!" Bai Zuzhen raised a hand gently. "Let him go." Shu Shen wandered the riverside for hours. The sky had turned grey, and the wind brought no comfort. He remembered her laughter, her hands, the way she brewed tea as though each leaf mattered, the way she listened, really listened, to his fears. Had all of that been a lie? He didn't know. He sat at the edge of the broken bridge, where they had first shared their umbrella in the rain. His heart beat like a hollow drum. Then
he heard footsteps. She stood at the other end of the bridge. The wind lifted her robes like the wings of a crane. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Bai Zushen stepped forward. "I never meant to hurt you." Shu Shen looked down at the water. "I don't understand. I don't know how to feel." "You don't have to," she said. "You only have to remember what we shared." He looked up at her, and for a moment he didn't see the serpent, or the spirit, or the storm around them. He saw her, and the tears came quietly. He stepped forward and took her hand. "I'm afraid," he said. "I know," she whispered, "but I'm still me." And he held her there on the bridge, while the river whispered beneath them. But peace, once broken, is not easily restored. Fa-hai would not be denied. He returned, not with words, but with a spell, an incantation as old as the wind. One evening, while Shu Shen worked late, Fa-hai approached him in disguise, offering a tonic to calm the heart. A potion, he said, to ease confusion. Shu Shen, still shaken, drank it. He collapsed before the lantern could flicker twice. Bai Zushen found him moments later, his body cold, breath shallow. She screamed. The sky cracked open with thunder.
The clouds gathered like grieving spirits, low and dark, as Bai Sujian knelt beside Shu Xian's motionless form. Her hands trembled as she touched his face, as pale and still as porcelain. "No," she whispered, "not like this." Shao King appeared in the doorway, eyes wide with dread. She rushed to them, but even she could feel it. The life in Shu Xian was slipping away like mist from a leaf. "What did they give him?" King hissed. "What poison was this?" Bai Sujian said nothing. She closed her eyes and pressed her palms together. A low hum began in her chest, a song without melody, a prayer older than temples. Her spirit rose. The room shimmered with silver light. "She is not gone," she said softly, "but I cannot save him here." She stood, lifting Shu Xian into her arms with a strength that came not from muscle, but from love and desperation. "We're going to Mount Imei." Mount Imei stood like a sleeping god in the distance, crowned with snow and mist. It was a sacred place where spirit and sky touched, a refuge for those seeking answers beyond the reach of mortals. By the time they reached it, Bai Sujian's strength was waning. The journey had drained her, and Shu Xian's body remained cold, breathless. Still, she carried him. Shao King ran ahead, calling out to the guardians of the mountain, demanding aid. At the summit stood a quiet temple, older than memory, watched over by a bodhisattva, a being of compassion and boundless mercy. Bai Sujian knelt at the temple's gate and wept. I never asked for eternity. I never wanted power. I only wanted to understand love. The Bodhisattva appeared not as a figure of fire or light, but as a woman in plain robes, eyes full of stars. She listened, and then she extended her hand. "There is a way," she said, "but it will cost you anything. You must offer half your cultivation, the years you spent in silence, the power you've earned in patience. You will become less than you are. I will still be enough for him," Bai Sujen said. And so she gave it. She knelt, hands open, and the Bodhisattva drew from her a thread of light, long and soft and shimmering. She shuddered as it left her, the strength of centuries unraveling into the sky. But when she opened her eyes, Shu Xian breathed. His chest rose, his fingers twitched. He coughed once and looked up at her. "Su Jian," he said. She smiled through tears. "You came back." He touched her face. "I never left." They returned to Hangzhou as the plume blossoms bloomed again. For a time it seemed as if peace had returned with them. The people, though wary, came again to the apothecary, drawn not only by healing herbs, but something quieter, a grace that neither time nor rumor could explain. But Fahai had seen her defy death. He had seen her plead with the heavens, offer her soul and be heard. To him, this was proof not of love, but of danger. If she can bend the laws of life, he told his disciples, then she is beyond mercy. She is temptation incarnate. And he began to prepare the spell that would bind her forever.
It was the morning of the Dragon Boat Festival once again. A full year since that fateful day when their love had been tested by truth, fear, and judgment. The riverbanks swelled with life. Vibrant flags snapped in the breeze. Dragon boats surged across the water, and children danced with bamboo flutes in hand. But Bai Sujen felt the unease curling beneath the joy like smoke beneath floorboards. She held Zhu Xian's hand tighter than usual. Her eyes flicked toward the hills, toward the temple. Fahai had been silent for too long. Xiao Xiang was restless too. She had taken to pacing at night, coiling and uncoiling herself on the rooftop tiles. "He's planning something," she muttered again and again. "I can feel it." Bai Sujen said little, but her silence was no longer soft. It had weight now, the kind that only comes before a storm. That night, as the festival lamps began to dim and the crowds returned to their homes, a chill swept through Hangzhou that did not belong to any season. It came not from the mountains or the rivers, but from the spell Fahai cast in secret. He had drawn it from forbidden sutras, binding words wrapped in ancient silk and sealed beneath the temple's oldest stone. Words that once commanded storms and banished spirits into the earth. He chanted them by moonlight beneath the statue of the guardian Buddha. His voice echoed like thunder through a canyon, and the earth listened. At the apothecary, a sudden gust burst the doors open. Candles flickered, then died. Bai Su-jian stood, her body straightening like a drawn bow. "It's time," she said. From the far corner, Xiao Sheng hissed, her eyes flashing green. "He dares to come into our home." Outside, the street darkened unnaturally. Rain began to fall, not in droplets, but in long, sharp lines like needles. Then came the monk. Fahai stood at the edge of the garden, robes soaked but untouched by mud, beads clutched in one hand, scroll in the other. "Your deception ends here," he said. Zhu Xian stepped forward. "No, you've seen the truth. You've seen her give everything. For me, for life. She is not what you say." "She is exactly what I say. And if she does not yield, I will bring down the temple upon this town to stop her." The ground shook. Bai Su-jian stepped between them, eyes calm but blazing. "Then I will not yield." Lightning split the sky. The storm began. Bai Su-jian rose into the air, robes flaring like the wings of a crane. Her form shimmered, human, spirit, light and power. She did not grow monstrous, she did not hiss or bear fangs. She simply became more true. Fahai summoned winds to bind her, chains of light to hold her, spells older than dynasties. Xiao Sheng leapt into the sky beside her, transforming in a spiral of green flame, her tail cracking like a whip through the storm. "You want a fight? You'll get one." The skies above Hangzhou turned white and gold and green, serpents of storm dancing through the clouds. Zhu Yen could do nothing but watch, his heart tearing with every flash, every roar, every scream of wind. And then, with a roar of finality, Fahai spoke the last word of the spell. A great wave rose from the earth, not water, but energy, pure force, heavy as mountains. It crashed over Bai Su-jian, and the world went silent. When the light faded, Bai Su-jian was gone. Only a shimmer of silver scales remained on the stone path. Zhu Jian collapsed to his knees. Fahai, breathing heavily, lowered his staff. She has been sealed in Leifeng Pagoda, where she can harm no one again. Xiao Sheng rushed to the spot where her sister once stood. She screamed, a sound that shattered lantern glass and silenced every bird in the trees. Then she turned to Fahai, her eyes burning. "This is not the end. You cannot trap light forever."
The seasons turned. Plum blossoms gave way to summer heat, then to autumn winds, then to winter hush.
The lanterns of Hongzhou glowed a little dimmer. The apothecary closed its doors, and Shu Xian faded. He lived, but not as before. His smile became rare, his steps slow. He still brewed tea, still walked by the lake, but his soul floated just above the earth, like someone waiting for a voice he could no longer hear. Every morning he looked toward Lifeng Pagoda, rising solemn and still on the far side of West Lake. He knew she was there, and though the monks said it was impossible, he believed she still heard him. Each day he climbed the steps. Each day he left flowers on the stone floor, and each day he whispered her name, Su-Jian. Inside the pagoda, Bai Su-Jian dreamt, not in images or stories, but in feelings, warmth, water, wind. She dreamed of Shu Xian's laughter, of Xiao Cheng's voice teasing her, of the sun through paper windows and the smell of ginger tea. Her spirit drifted in circles, never still, never gone. The spell bound her body, but not her love. She waited. She endured. She listened for his voice, faint but unwavering, rising through the stone like mist through a mountain. And far below, Xiao Cheng had not stopped fighting. Years passed. Fa-hai returned to his temple, older and quieter. He had won, perhaps, but peace did not find him. He meditated longer, spoke less. At night he heard the wind whisper through the trees, a sound like scales brushing over stone. Xiao Cheng traveled across the country, seeking sages and spirits, scrolls and secrets. She swam through rivers, flew across forests, slipped into dreams. She visited the Dragon King beneath the sea, the immortals in the peach garden, even the old stone hermit who spoke to mountains. One by one they taught her, not how to fight, but how to wait, how to build, how to listen to time like a heartbeat. And when the moment came, she was ready. It was a spring morning unlike any other. The cherry trees exploded with bloom. The lake shone like a mirror, and a child, a boy, no more than 10, stood at the gates of the pagoda. His name was Shu Shilin. He was the son of Bai Su-Jian and Shu Xian. Born after her imprisonment, raised by monks, taught the arts of both spirit and scroll. He carried a tablet of prayer and a single white flower, and he climbed the steps of Lifeng Pagoda with no fear. The monks tried to stop him. The winds howled, the stone shook, but he stood firm and placed the flower on the gate. And then he sang, a simple lullaby, the one his father used to hum while looking toward the lake. And somewhere deep within the tower, Bai Su-Jian heard it. Her heart stirred, and the spell cracked. With a sound like thunder wrapped in silk, the sky opened. The pagoda's walls glowed with light, not fierce, not wild, but gentle, like moonlight on still water. Stone by stone the bindings fell away, and Bai Su-Jian stepped out into the spring air. Her robes fluttered in the breeze, Her hair shone like the river. And at the base of the tower Shu Xian stood, older now, silver at his temples, but his eyes bright with the light of 1,000 mornings. She walked to him. He met him halfway. No words passed between them, only silence, rich, full, endless. Then he placed his hand in hers, and the world sighed with relief. Fahai, far away, sat in meditation. When he felt the spell break, he did not arise. He simply bowed his head, not in defeat, but in understanding. Perhaps what he had feared was never danger at all. Perhaps it was love, the kind that cannot be measured by rules or flesh or time. Bai Sujen and Shu Xian lived again, not forever, but long enough. Long enough to walk by the lake in the evenings, long enough to teach their son how to tend to herbs and brew tea, long enough to laugh. And when they passed, the people of Hongzhou told their story by firelight, of the white snake who loved truly, and the man who saw her soul. And if you ever find yourself by Westlake, near Lifeng Pagoda, lean close to the water. Sometimes on quiet nights, when the moon is high, you might see her reflection there, smiling, waiting, watching the ones who still believe in love without fear.